What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be talking about John Wick Chapter 2. This is the follow-up to the very successful first film that surprised a lot of people when that first film came out. A lot of people really didn't know what to make of it, and then it finally came out and surprised all of us. So now we have John Wick going to the Continental and going to Europe for a new mission and task. When this film first came out, I was very excited because I really loved the first film. The trailers for this film looked very exciting, and so nowadays this film kind of holds a special place in my heart, and I absolutely enjoyed this movie. This movie is a bit of a step down from the first film, just a little bit. Take away the motivation that I was not really able to get into. I was not able to get into the villain of this film. Take that away, do something better with it. This movie might have been either better or just as good as that first film. This film had everything that you loved about the first film and amped it up just a little bit. Keanu Reeves comes back as John Wick, and there is nobody better to play John Wick than Keanu Reeves. He does an amazing job, not only with the stunts, but with the way that he is delivering the lines, the way that he's performing as John Wick. He does a really good job of honing that violent side of him, and whenever he gets into trouble and a lot of the action sequences happen, Keanu Reeves is there to deliver. He is just absolutely fantastic in this role. I can't see anybody playing John Wick other than him. I think he does a fantastic job of just elevating the role just a little bit. This time around, we only have Chad Stahelski directing the film. David Leitch takes a little step back from this film, and Chad Stahelski did a really good job of handling this movie. Even though the story for this movie just a little bit wasn't my cup of tea, I wasn't a big fan of Santonio D'Antonio being the villain in this movie. There wasn't a lot for me to grasp on to this guy as much as there was in the first film, because even though that movie is kind of plot driven by the death of a puppy, you have Alfie as one of the villains, but his uncle being the main overarching villain. I thought that worked better than it worked in this movie. I was not able to get into the motivation as to why John Wick is back, and you actually had some new supporting characters that added to the film. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Ruby Rose, I thought she did very well for the role that she was given. She's there only just for the physical action, and she delivers it every single time. Ian McShane comes back as the owner of the Continental, or the general manager of the Continental. And the thing that I loved about this movie is the fact that we got to see the Continental outside of the US and put into Rome, and so that gives you a little bit more of a wide variety as to how far the Continental can stretch. There's basically one on every single corner of each continent. That's what I loved about this movie, and it's what I loved about the first film. You just see how it all operates. They all have basically the same rules, and that is something that was very transparent in this movie, and it delivered every single time. This movie was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved what Chad Stahelski was able to do with this movie and what Keanu Reeves does with John Wick. I think he is absolutely fantastic in this role, and he is at home. Aside from some pacing issues here and there really isn't a lot that I didn't like about this movie. If there is things that I didn't like about this movie, it's just minor nitpick, mostly because I really enjoyed the action in this movie. It's really well handled, and that is something that carries on into every other John Wick movie, is the action. You see the whole action sequence in its frame, and there aren't a billion jump cuts. That is something that I loved and appreciate about the John Wick films, is the fact that these action sequences are handled very well, and it helps that Chad Stahelski and David Leitch are stuntmen, so it actually works for them to really choreograph the action sequences and see how they are handled. That is something that whenever I go into a John Wick movie, I'm not 100% worried about, because I know that these guys are fantastic at handling the action sequences, and they are great at shooting them as well. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give John Wick Chapter 2 an 8.5 out of 10. For me personally, even though the story did not resonate with me as much as I wanted to, it really is saved by the fact that we have some great action sequences here and there. We have some great world building, and just everything about this movie that we loved about the first film is transferred into this movie and just amped up just a little bit. But those are my thoughts on John Wick Chapter 2. Have you guys checked it out? Did you enjoy it? Is this one of your least favorite John Wick films? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.